During the Great Depression, money was tight for just about everybody, and that meant a lot of kids had to make their own fun. A Duluth author has a new book out about her mother's experiences in the 1930s. Dave Anderson has more in this week's Holding On to History.
Depression glass is a collectible relic of the Great Depression, and a Northlander has just written a book about those tough times.
My feet were bleeding. They were too small, but nobody had enough money to buy another pair of shoes, so I wore those for another 6 months till I had saved enough babysitting money to buy myself a pair of shoes for $2.
Lily Halderson lived to be 107 and never forgot how hard the Great Depression was from 1929 to 1941. The late Jeanette Meinhardt remembered too, so her daughter, Naomi Helen Yeager, compiled those stories into a book called Blooming Hollyhocks. The tall hollyhock was used to camouflage the ubiquitous outhouses of the era.
I even have a friend whose dad calls them outhouse flowers.
They could also be crafted into free toys, similar to cornhusk dolls, which were common then too.
A couple hollyhocks put together so they look like princess dolls.
During the Depression, 25% of Americans were jobless, and those who still had work found frozen pay and reduced hours. Meinhardt's father kept his railroad job, so their family didn't have it as hard as some, and did what they could to help the herds of men roaming the country looking for work and food.
Usually they'd want a chore, and then they'd do a chore and my grandma would feed them.
Right now, Naomi and her husband Terry are touring the region promoting the book through storytelling and song. Holding on to history in Duluth, Dave